We got to the point of the confirmation of minutes. Councillor Campbell has asked that be dealt with separately. That is the minutes of the ordinary meeting, the minutes of the extraordinary meeting. The mover of those, are you happy to do that?
Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Thank you. So it's been moved and seconded. We're dealing with the ordinary minutes first. Anything on those? On that? No. Councillor Campbell.
Yes, on page 17, there's a report to come back to council today, resolution 290721, regarding alternate recommendations for the management of donations or contributions, and I can't seem to locate it in the meeting anywhere, so I'm not sure if there's a report that I've missed.
Mr. Harvey? Did you hear the question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I didn't hear the question.
There's a resolution in the minutes of the last general meeting saying that Mr. Harvey will bring forward a report to the next meeting of the council with alternative recommendations in the management of donations or contributions to any club, member, charity or organisation on equivals to council. That hasn't happened.
Apologies, Mr. No, it hasn't, Mr. Mayor. We've run out of time on that one.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Councillor Campbell?
No, that's all right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other issues from anybody regarding the minutes of the ordinary meeting? No? Put that to the vote. Make the vote. That's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to the minutes of the extraordinary meeting on page 23. Someone like to move those? Thanks, Councillor Cullen. Seconded by Councillor Wise. Thank you. Councillor Cullen.
Yeah, just reiterating as stated previously before we move them separately that I was not able to attend the first 11 minutes.
Well, in fact, you should have moved it.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I need another mover.
Sorry, my fault.
Councillor Wise?
Yeah.
Yes, seconder. Councillor Wayward, thank you. All right, Councillor Wise, any comments to make? No? Councillor Campbell?
Yeah.
Sorry,
Linda.
Sorry, Councillor Wayward was not actually attending.
You can second the meeting and you can comment on it if you like.
Oh, sorry. Yep, several things in just the minutes that present. There was only Councillor Bilkey, myself, Councillor Aquino, Councillor Crowe and Councillor Wise, which is reflective in the resolution of in favour and against. It's carried 4-1, so there's only 5 councillors present. On the present, plus in the leave of absence and apologies, I believe Councillor Alan Mathers should have come down under number 4 on the disclosures of interest instead of being an apology or a leave of absence. That because there was no, although he wasn't here anyway, so I'm not sure, Councillor Mathers, what the go is there, but I just think it's in the wrong box.
He tendered an apology before the meeting started.
Oh, right, so that's okay. All right then, no, that's fine. Just that there was a few discrepancies in who was present and who wasn't. And, oh no, and who, I was just saying, there was discrepancies in who was present and who wasn't. Well, who's present at the meeting on Thursday the 12th of August? There's Councillor Nikki Cullen, Councillor Thomas Waywich, who both said right here and now they weren't here. And if you look over the page, on the carried the motion, it was carried 4-1. There's 5 councillors present, and the documentation doesn't reflect it in my minutes anyway.
Okay, that's a very, very good call.
Thank you.
Councillor Waywich, you weren't here? Right. Councillor Wise, were you here?
Yes.
Yes. Who was not here other than that? Councillor Crowe?
There was an apology from Councillor Gorey and Councillor Mathers, so I stand corrected on that.
Councillor Quino, you had an apology.
No, he was here.
I was here. Oh, I think you've done. I'll just down a second. I think you've done. So it was here, just in the decision. Quino, Crowe, Wise, and so Councillor Gorey is not listed there. Who else am I missing? 1, 2, 3, 4. So Councillor Cole wasn't present. 1, 2, 3,
So I understood it that Councillor Wayrich and Councillor Cohen were late, and Councillor Mathers and Councillor Gorey had apologies. So that would have left yourself, Mr Mayor, Councillor Quino, Crow, Wise and Councillor Campbell.
Well, why can I only count 4 in the present column and 5 in the voting system? Who am I missing? Quino? Oh, Quino's present, that's right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Quino. Okay, so we're striking out Councillor Cohen and Councillor Wayrich from those present in the top attendees. Is that right, Councillor Campbell?
Sorry, whatever you said, I think there's supposed to be 5 of us
Yeah,
there.
that's right.
Thank you.
You've got it right, yeah. Thank you. You got that? Thank you. Okay, anything else, Councillor Campbell?
Yes, I'm concerned. I sought legal advice on this resolution, and I believe it was sent to the General Manager on the 23rd of August yesterday, and questioning the powers that the Council has in respect to pass this motion. So I would like some clarification on whether, pursuant to section 31, whether we have the powers to pass this motion, and is this land community land, given that it was out of the 3 months time frame.
Okay, I think this is addressed in the supplementary paper you have, Councillor Campbell. You'll find on page 73 of the supplementary papers.
Where's the supplementary papers? The ones that are left on my desk? So I get supplementary papers as I walk in the door, and that's okay, that I have time to digest those papers.
I'm going to allow time during the meeting for people to read these items, to call a recess to have people read them. They were acted upon, as you can imagine, on the basis of very recently received legal advice, and the paper that's before you was put together this morning. So it wasn't as if it's been sitting around waiting to be distributed. It was went out as soon as possible to make it available to this meeting.
Well, I don't accept I've got enough time to decipher that supplementary report, given the serious nature of this whole business, and I believe it come before yourself and other councillors, this section, when I raised a rescission motion on Friday, that unfortunately didn't get the support of council.
Mr. Dodds,
Through Mr Mayor, as a result of the failed rescission motion, I sought more advice through my planner and sought legal advice on Friday, more legal advice on the Monday. Councillor Campbell's lawyer emailed me at 10:44 p.m. on Monday night. So I think if it's good enough for Councillor Campbell's lawyer to expect instant gratification late at night, that Councillor Campbell should accept a report today along those same lines. I had spoken to the Mayor early on, understanding this is quite a complex report, and suggested that Council get given time to read it when we're up to that section of the agenda.
I'm prepared to give as much time as necessary as councillors require to read through and understand that report. So it's on all the time. So thank you, Councillor Campbell. I appreciate the issue that you've raised in relation to the minutes. The issue here is whether the minutes are actually accurate, not about what we should have done subsequently to those minutes. The appropriateness or otherwise of the decision taken in that meeting is not the issue for the confirmation of the minutes. The minutes simply are there to reflect accurately what took place at the time. So unless you've got any concerns about the accuracy of the minutes, we can leave debate about that other issue until it comes up on the agenda. Thanks. Any other discussion about the minutes?
Mr Mayor, if we ratify the minutes now, I'm no expert in governance, but if we ratify the minutes now, does that then mean that resolution stands, and that if we discuss it later on in the meeting,
No, it doesn't mean that the legal advice, which may or may not conform with the decision taken, and if that legal advice is contrary to that, it's our obligation to change what we were doing.
So would that require a rescission motion to
It can be done, Mr. Ross.
Through Mr Mayor, any previous resolutions, as soon as there's a new resolution on the same topic or issue or whatever it is, it could even be a budget, what was decided before becomes past tense, and the latest resolution becomes the resolution of council. In adopting the minutes, it's a true reflection of what was spoken about at that meeting, and the same thing will happen with sections 9.4.1 today. When council adopt that will circumvent what was adopted at the last meeting.
My only motivation, Mr Mayor, is to, cross the T's and dot our I's.
So council will adopt that, will we?
Well, council's obligation in relation to the minutes.
No, I'm just saying whatever's coming up next that we haven't seen, we're going to adopt that, are we?
Sorry. My apologies. Sorry, council? Okay. Did you say, will we adopt the...
Carry on.
So, Mr Mayor, you indicated in previous that you're prepared to spend as much time as necessary. I take it that in the supplementary report, that's when we will discuss it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Councillor, just make sure you turn your microphones on. I'm just getting lots of messages to say they can't hear anyone.
Through Mr Mayor, it may be an idea to bring that matter forward if it's that important, and actually adjourn the meeting at the beginning so that that councillors get the time to reflect it, if that be the wish of yourself and council.
I'm just looking at the other issues that we have in front of us. So when it comes to reports to council, which is item 9, there's nothing between item 4 and item 9, reports to council. So I'm happy to, after the confirmation of minutes has been moved, seconded and voted on, to move straight to reports to council, and I'm further happy to bring that supplementary item in relation to the abattoir as the first item among the reports to council. Is that something that people would be happy with? Any dissension? No?
Yeah, I'm happy with that, Mr
Okay.
Mayor. We're going to have to deal with it today sometime, so let's do it sooner rather than later.
All right, I still haven't had a vote on the confirmation of the minutes of the extraordinary meeting. We've had it moved and seconded. Any further discussion on those? No, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. I will now indicate that we're going to move to item 9.4.1, which is part of the agenda of the supplementary agenda for the council meeting, and it can be found on page 73. 73. So,
Mr Mayor, I should probably exit this meeting at the time I suspect.
yes, I think you should. You can sign out, and Lindy will give you a call when we're ready to reconvene,
Okay, thank you.
or when you can come back in. Thanks, Councillor Mathers.
Mr Mayor, could I just suggest, given that this is a late report, a supplementary report, that we have a 10-minute recess?
I was going to say 15.
Or 15, just so we could digest it.
That's exactly what I'm proposing.
Thank you.
Yeah. If that's agreeable to everybody, I will recess the meeting until 20 to 3. during which time you can make yourselves familiar with the contents of that report. Well, welcome back, councillors. We're dealing with item 9.4.1. That's the Barham Micro Abattoir update. The recommendation before us is that council note the content and associated attachments and proceed to reclassify the Barham Micro Abattoir site from community land to operational land as per the steps contained within the report. So, would someone like to move that? No? Thanks, Councillor Quino. Seconded, Councillor Crowe. Discussion. Councillor Quino.
I actually see this as nothing more than a late electricity bill. The fact that we voted to have this go ahead in the first place doesn't change the fact that some signatures were late coming in, and that's all I can understand that's happened here. I also understand that it's an easy fix and that we should be looking at an easy fix instead of wasting time and ratepayers' money.
Thank you. Any others? Councillor Campbell.
I'd just like to state that I haven't read this whole document right through, but there's a couple of questions I have. And the first one, if I could just ask another councillor, when I was seeking to have the rescission motion filled in, I saw you, Councillor Wise, and I thank you for your generous time. But I was just a bit miffed when you said that you knew with this meeting in August the 12th, the extraordinary meeting, that they knew that they had to fix this up because we weren't within the time frame or something. That they knew. That's why we had the meeting. No, well, what did you mean by that's why we had the extraordinary meeting?
No, I can't say that I said that actually.
Well, when you said that's why we had the extraordinary meeting.
Sort of to get it just a DA right, that's all.
Okay then. No, that's all right.
A little bit too
Yeah, no, that's okay. I just thought I'd clear that with you.
No.
But, and I accept your response. But I just want to remind councillors, when I look through some of this writing in here, that they're saying somewhere in here, if I can find it, basically that if council votes, the majority of council votes, well, it seemed to be, where did it say that in here? Sorry, I'll just let me find it again so I can quote it.
Thanks. I'll get to you, Mr. Harvey.
Somewhere it says where they had the majority of the vote. I'm just
It's on
trying
the top
to.
of page 77, I think, Councillor Campbell.
Thank you.
Second paragraph down.
Yep. Thank you. A decision supported by the majority of votes at a meeting of the council at which a quorum is present is the decision of council. Accordingly, the resolution of the 12th of August 2021 is the decision of council until otherwise rescinded or deemed invalid by the Land and Environmental Court. Well, my legal advice states the legislation no doubt mandated the provisions in Division 1 as a means of securing fairness in council dealings with ratepayers and vested interests, and council does not have the power to disregard it.
Sorry, to disregard what?
Disregard the legislation.
And I think
So, regardless, my point is, regardless of whether you had the majority vote, if it's not a legal recommendation, well, I don't see how we've got to wait until it's rescinded or heard in the courts. But I could stand corrected.
I think it's somewhat of a moot point because what's being proposed here is to move a motion that would be in accordance with the Act and would reflect the steps that, technically speaking, weren't covered in the first motion. That is the time delay of 3 months, or the time window of 3 months from the date of acquisition. However, Mr. Harvey, you had your hand up a long time ago.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to Council. My report that went up at the extraordinary meeting, I have to apologise to Council that was necessary because of an oversight by me and a misunderstanding of Section 31 of the Act. I believe that there wouldn't be anyone anywhere who's followed this matter that would think that Council purchased that land for any reason other than for a micro abattoir. In fact, the land Council at an earlier resolution indicated that no Council money should be used for the purposes of this project, which gave us quite a difficult situation because we had to meet some requirements by the funding bodies that the land be in Council's name. And so to avoid that, the Murray Plains Meat Cooperative raised the money for the purchase of the land and gifted that land to Council for the purposes of a micro abattoir. So I understand that we're here talking about a technical point. The technical point is that arose because of an oversight by me, and the motion, the recommendation that I put at that meeting on the 12th of August misinterpreted the Act. It's as simple as that. I think that the report that's been put forward now indicates that the land has lapsed to become community land, and Council has indicated here within this report how that land can revert back or be taken back to the operational land.
Thank you. Councillor Gorey. You're on mute.
Yes.
Yeah, go on.
That's where I'm off mute. It just takes a little time to get off mute. That's okay. Look, having read the report, look, I firmly believe what John Harvey's just said. The intention was the micro abattoir. I never heard of anything else suggested for that site. But looking through, yes, I do believe now, although the intention was to create operational land, it is still community land, and from what I can read, it will require a rescission motion. And now I expect that then Council's going to go through that LEP process with the support of councillors if they wish to make doing it operational land again. So that's what the process is I see. It's still not right up to councils to support or not support, but there is a single process there which I think we must follow.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, at the time of receiving the legal advice on Friday, the path to unravel what was done on the 12th wasn't decided. It wasn't a question that we actually asked our legal counsel until later on. We got that information late Friday afternoon, and it was my decision to simply write a new report which would gazump the resolution from the 12th of August to actually go through the process of converting the now community land by default into operational land, thus it becoming the resolution and the will of the latest iteration of the will of council. So although the legal advice, and at the time there was a rescission motion received by myself with only 2 signatories on it, which may have been why the legal counsel mentioned rescission motion. But I understand, having done this not in relation to land, but having moved or seen councils moved new or updated resolutions, that this would change the result from the 12th of August, because it clearly says that council proceed to reclassify the site from community land, so by saying it's community land, acknowledges that the 3 months from the 1st of April has lapsed, and therefore under section 31 of the Act it is community land, to operational land as per the steps contained within the report. So it basically covers Councillor Campbell's concerns, it covers the Act, and I won't accept that Mr Harvey is all at fault with this. There is a section of law called the Wednesbury unreasonableness test, and I interpreted the Wednesbury unreasonableness test as, would someone in a similar situation or the exact situation deemed that council acted reasonably, given that 3 months from the date of notification council resolved to convert the land. Now, in the Local Government Act, there's one section with 5 subparts that determine what is allowed to transpire in the result of an error. Now, the local government explicitly says what those 5 things are, and by explicitly saying what those 5 things are and excluding land, is explicitly saying that you can't do the same with land, and therefore the Wednesbury test of reasonableness would fail. Hence, our legal advice on Friday and Monday. The legal advice on Monday isn't about so much the fact that it's community land, it's the process to convert. So that's why there was 2 separate lots of legal advice. So as it stands at the moment, the land is definitely community land as per section 31 of the Act, and it's up to council now to decide, or otherwise, to go through the process of converting the land as contained in the steps in the report from what has become defaulted community land, despite the fact there was never any intention of it, to operational land.
Councillor Cohen.
Can I just ask a question? So on page, sorry, change glasses, 74, where obviously this process could take 6 to 8 months, what are the chances of the cooperative still maintaining the grant funds?
Mr Harvey, did you hear the question?
Yes, I did, Mr Mayor.
Thank you.
Look, I can't make a call on that one. We've had on the drought communities funding, we've onto our second extension at this point in time. Issue of a DA at some point soon. We'll secure that funding. With the Murray-Darling Basin funding and with the Growing Local Economies Fund, I'll have to talk with those funding bodies to see whether we can negotiate that as an extra long extension given the circumstances.
Thank you. Follow-up question?
Yep, sorry. I hope that is achievable, so thank you for that. Also, what and who's going to cover, I'm guessing, the extra costs with going through all these extra hoops they've now got to jump through? And are they going to be able to find the funds for that?
The extra funds that have been costed at this stage were from additional requirements for the development application, and they're covered within the funding that we already have. So we're not in confidential, so I wouldn't like to say how the budget sits at this point in time, as it may give an advantage to someone that we're doing business with. But all I can say, Councillor, is that it's not my biggest concern at this stage.
Thank you. Councillor Weyrich.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have to say from the outset I was not in favour of this micro abattoir, and I'm on the record as saying that, but with hindsight and given the fact that none of this money is our money, it's all grant money, and I acknowledge, and Councillor Campbell has certainly raised some interesting issues, that there may well have been some procedural and protocol errors. I think if we just acknowledge that that is the case, there's nothing intentional here that I can see, You know, I know Councillor Campbell is desperately wanting to pursue the matter, and that's...
No, can you retract that?
Well, you sought your own legal advice, so as far as
Because I need to find legal advice to find out what's true and correct. So can you retract that?
Councillor Campbell, when you're called on. Thank you.
Well,
you can raise a note. You can raise a.
All right, I'll retract the statement.
Like,
I'll retract the statement, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry.
Swap insults across the table. Point of order if you wish, but otherwise.
Oh, sorry, point of order.
Point of order.
He's fine. Thank you.
Well, I've apologised,
Thank you.
and I'll retract the statement. But nevertheless, I think if we acknowledge there's been some errors made, all right, and I think if we just leave it at that and move on, because there are lots of things at risk here. There is the financial responsibilities that we have towards this project, and if we place that in jeopardy, is it 2 extensions, Mr. Harvey, that we've already had?
That's correct.
Yes.
Or one of the funds.
So a longer one, a third extension of a longer period may well jeopardise the whole project. And as I've said, I'm a roads, rates and rubbish guy, but we're in this that far that I think we just should suck it up and move on and cut our losses.
Thank you. Councillor Campbell.
Well, I see communication as an issue here. I tried to raise some issues, as councillors would be well aware. I think back in the September 2020 meeting where I was told to put up and shut up by the General Manager of the time, and that's on live streaming video for anyone to check. So I am putting up because we've never been able to discuss this, and we've called for meetings when we could discuss anything about this, but we weren't allowed to discuss it because it would come under the commercial in confidence rule, which I accept. But I just want to take us back to the matter in question right now, because page 77, 4.6, that the council staff are under mistaken belief that they were only notified as a settlement on the 18th of May 2021. And I accept that, well, I think, because I haven't read the documents properly, that we might have acknowledged that we did purchase the land on the 1st of April. But in the documents earlier in our ordinary meeting, everywhere I look is with the Telstra Tower, the Common Seal of Council is attached to all the business of council. We've got another Common Seal of Council on the Resolution 200721, another one 080721. So I think there's many triggers that are triggered when you become the owner of real estate, regardless of how it was purchased. So I'm just a little bit concerned. All my concern is about the process. So I don't want to pursue anything, but I do want to pursue the process of this council that keeps coming every time, just keeps coming.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell.
What's that comment?
Me, I think.
Can I have that comment again?
He was talking to me, I think.
What? Did he say what a load of shit? Is that what was said?
I don't know. I didn't hear.
Can I have that comment again, please? What was it? I missed it. Through you, Mr. Mayor?
Well, I don't know. You can ask him.
You kidding me?
Did you make a comment, Mr. Harvey?
I may have under my breath, Mr. Mayor, and I withdraw the comment and apologise most profusely.
Okay, thank you. So where are we? Councillor Waywich, you want another go?
No, I was going to ask Councillor Crow's view of all of this, but I don't believe she's had anything to say. And given that this is in her ward, I think it might be appropriate to hear from Councillor Crow.
Councillor Crow, do you wish to make any contribution?
Well, I believe we're just trying to find a way to navigate through the process, make sure we do have some operational land so we can get on with our micro-abattoirs, which many residents over there, which are now part of the meat cooperative, have spent countless amounts of hours trying to get all this together, not to mention Mr. Harvey and his economic development team. Many hours, chasing up funding. It's been a very, very long process, and ultimately it will feed into the local economy of Barraman further than that, I would think, for all the boutique meat growers. I just don't think it's it's all about getting the micro abattoir off the ground, get it up and running.
Thank you. Any further comment? Councillor Wise.
Yeah, look, I'm disappointed that this matter's been raised. I agree with Tom. Sometimes I don't, but he talks a lot of sense when he spoke that we've gone down the road far enough, we're in the bag, and we really are. It's only a technicality, and I understand that Councillor Campbell's made us aware of that technicality, and I do agree with that part of the technicality of it. There's human error involved in every industry in the world, and this is just one little, tiny little tidbit of human error that's going to cost a lot of money. And I don't know whether Councillor Campbell, you always say that you're trying to save money for council. This is going to cost money for council. It's not a big, massive thing. I know we can fix it. I'm sure they can fix it after the event if we have to go through the whole protocol thing. But I'm very disappointed that, look, 7 councillors have been voting solidly on this thing for about 2 years or something. I don't know. We've given the community the preface that we're ready to go, and now we're going to let them down. Just because one councillor decides that, I don't know, you've always voted against it.
Careful, Councillor Wise.
Keep going.
You're stepping close.
Sorry. I'll take it all back.
It's my role, Councillor Campbell. So
I'll
please don't ask him to.
I'll retract the statement
overrule
if necessary.
my caution.
Yeah. So look, I'm disappointed that it's happening. I know that the legalities probably state on paper that we are really supposed to be. They're running close to the line with our paperwork, and that's all that's happened. But we really need this project to keep going and roll forward. 7 councillors have kept on voting for it. I know you 2 guys haven't, and that's okay. That's your right as councillors, and I respect that totally. But I think we should respect the councillors that have already been voting all this time to get this project over the line, and just give it a break and get it rolling forward. We've got to do one way or the other. We have to really get it rolling forward. That's all I'd like to see done.
Thank you, Councillor. I think everyone who's had a chat... Oh, sorry, Councillor Gorey.
Yeah, well, one comment I'm noticing the advice as well is saying really that the best intention of the day was the councillors supported that decision majority 4-1. They bring up the issue of May 18th as versus April 1st when the actual transfer took place. Now, did anyone not being in the room that day, did anyone point out that it should have been April the 1st? What I can see, no councillor was aware of that date. They truly believed it was May the 18th. And on that provision, the advice is, well, that the councillors actually made it the best decision on the day. And we often, as a councillor, whether it be river setbacks, that sort of thing, we will go against planning advice and do what we think is best for the community. And in this position, or in this case, that the councillors on that day have done the same thing. So rather than objected to, any disconcerting comments, I think it's I support the council on that day if that was their intention. Thank you.
Thank you. And, I may be corrected, but I don't think it was raised at that meeting that anybody believed were out of date. And the other issue was, I forget what you'd raised now, so I'll defer to Mr Croft, who's got his hand in the air and has had for a while.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. I guess I just wanted to reiterate John's comments, the CEO's comments, and other councillors in the room. Yes, it's been an oversight, administrative error on our part. Going forward, this is what we're trying to do, is fix it. So, yes, it's been raised. Yes, we're working very hard behind the scenes, and John and staff and Terry are putting in a lot of hours behind the scenes to make this happen for the community. So I just wanted to stress that, and then just ask if there was any other questions in relation to the report that people may or may not hear on.
Thank you. Councillor Campbell, you had your hand up.
Yes, I did, and I'm just glad the public sees that this is how councillors are treated. And if I want to speak up, I'm elected by the ratepayers to look after the ratepayers, and if I disagree, Last time I looked, I did live in Australia, and I am representing ratepayers, and it's all about process for me. It's nothing personal, but if you want to continue with personal attacks, go right ahead. But I'd like the Mayor to provide me with a safe workplace.
I didn't see that.
No,
I made a ruling and I stopped the conversation. So you had the opportunity later to raise earlier to raise a point of order. You didn't do so. You preferred to talk across me to the person involved. You know the procedure. You've been here long enough. If you have an objection to make about anything anyone says, you raise a point of order. I will respect that point of order and listen to it and make a ruling on that point of order. But arguing across the table is not part of the code of meeting practice, and you know that because you've been here long enough.
Thank you for your lecture.
All right. Any further comment on this issue?
I did actually.
No, I don't want to go there.
Oh, okay. Right, I'll come on another angle. Okay.
Well, as long as it's not about the same thing.
I just wonder whether our Director of Planning changed in that time. Would that have had anything to do with, misgivings with we missed that 1.5 month window? Would that have been an issue?
I don't think that's relevant, Mr.
No,
Dodds.
that's okay.
Completely not relevant.
Yeah, no worries.
Where do we stand now?
We stand ready to take a vote on the recommendation.
Which
is to proceed to reclassify the Barron Micro Abattoir site from community land to operational land as per the steps contained within the report.
Okay, sure.
Okay. All right. If that's the debate, I'll put it to the debate. Put it to the vote. Those in favour of the recommendation, that's carried. Thank you.
Can I have a vision, and also I'd like it noted that I have read the report totally, and I haven't voted. I'm not casting any vote.
Well, that's a no vote.
Okay.
An abstention is a no vote. That's a no.
Also, I'm understanding that it could be recorded as.
Oh, it can certainly be recorded, but
no vote at all.
well, if you want to vote no, you vote no. If you want to abstain, it counts as a no vote. Is that right, Mr. Dodds? Yes.
And I think they do report, so I want that noted.
You get all that, Lindy?
So Councillor Campbell would like to know that she's not read the report
In its entirety. Thank you.
In its
would like to abstain from voting on this matter.
Thank you. All right, now I'm going to return to the agenda proper.
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Campbell abstained. Is everyone else for?
Everyone else was for, yes.
Everyone else was for.
Yeah. We're going to, where's my little cheat sheet? Yes, please, if you do bring him, that'll be good. We're going to page 29, councillors. Did you get him?
Yeah, he's just coming in now.
Yeah.
He's returned.
Welcome back, Councillor Mathers. Thank you. We're on item 9.1.1 on page 29 of your agenda, and that relates to the resolutions of council and the resolution tracker and info council action reports. The recommendation being that council receives and notes the status of the previous resolutions of council in open and closed council contained in the monthly operation report, including the resolution tracker report. So I'd like to move that You can't move things, Mr. Dodds.
No,
Councillor Wayrich, you put your hand up there.
Oh no, I'll scratch my head.
Councillor Wayrich, Councillor Aquino.
No intention of ever being a councillor, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Wayrich.
As written, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Other discussion? No, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. The next item is on page 31. Is it? Yes. Monthly operation report, works in progress, draft 2. The recommendation is that the officer's report on the monthly operational report, work in progress draft 2, as at the 16th of August be received and the information noted by council. So it is a fairly extensive and detailed report, as you can see. I'm pleased to see it has a traffic light system to indicate where the various projects are up to. I'm not sure that we want to get into the fine detail of that report. We're really talking about its context and its presentation. But would someone like to move that we receive and note that information? Thanks, Councillor Wise. Seconded, Councillor Aquino. Discussion, Councillor Wise? No. No further. Put it to the vote. Those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Now I'm going to go back to the supplementary agenda, and this is a very much a procedural motion. It relates to the extension of the representation on our regional planning representation. There's a lot of stuff attached to it which is rather irrelevant to the process. We're really asking that the officer's report on the extension of the regional panel presentation as at the 24th of August be received and the information noted, and that the council approve the extension of the Mayor, Alan Mathers, as permanent members and Councillor Wayrich as the alternative to be the Murray River Council nominated members of the Western Regional Planning Panel until January 2022 when the new council is elected. It's interesting that it says January 2022.
Can I speak?
You want to talk to that, Councillor Dodds? Councillor Dodds. Mr. Dodds?
As I
your
said,
wish has been fulfilled.
No, as I said, Mr. Mayor. Okay, so we received advice at 6 minutes past 11 on Friday that the membership of the planning panel was going to finish just before the September council meeting, which is no good. But it was too late to go into the business paper, which closed last Tuesday. So I apologise for the late report, but as you can see on page 5 at the top there, we didn't receive the information until very late. And as a matter of fact, I only read that email this morning because I've been busy doing micro-abattoir work for the last 5 days. So the reason that January 2022 was placed wasn't because that's when we think the election will be. It's because
3 month rollover.
The rollover, yeah. And the other thing is the new council probably won't be told who the successful candidates are until very early December. And then there's a whole heap of other stuff to do in relation to inductions and so on and so forth. So it was just a stab in the dark, but it does cover us. Until January anyway for the Western Planning Panel.
Thank you. So, can I have someone move that recommendation? Thanks, Councillor Gorey. Seconded, Councillor Crowe. Councillor Gorey, any comment?
Yeah, no comments required on this one. Very self-explanatory.
Okay. Any others? Councillor Cohen?
Just so long as the 3 councils are still happy with it.
Sorry?
Continue on.
Well, it's not an onerous task. I think I've sat on 2 or 3 of these meetings in the entire life of this council.
How many meetings do you have here?
Oh, you don't have any. You do have a training meeting, I think, when you first get appointed, but after that, it's just as required for local, state, significant planning issues. Councillor Wayrich, you happy to be the? Yeah. And Councillor Mathers, you're okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right. Having got that out of the way, which is a good point. Thanks, Councillor Cowan. Any further debate? Put it to vote. Those in favour? That's carried. Thank you.
Can I just register that I can read that all over? Sorry, I haven't read it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor. You got that? Thank you. I'll go on to 9.2.1, which is on page 187. So that's a fair way in. This is part of the Director of Shared Services report and supplementary matters under the leadership of Mr Dodds, and the recommendation is the vehicle driveway crossover policy version 2 be adopted by Council and the policy register updated. So someone like to move that for us? Thanks, Councillor Gorey. Seconded, Councillor Wise. Discussion, Councillor Gorey.
Oh, look, I don't think any discussions needed here. It's been on public display. It's like a bookkeeping exercise and not necessarily evil. So, yeah, that's my own comment.
Any other? No? Put it to vote. Those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. 195. The Business Continuity Policy version 1. This recommendation is that Council adopts the Business Continuity Policy version 1 and place it on the policy register. So someone would like to move that? Thanks, Councillor Campbell, was that? You didn't? No? Okay. Councillor Wise, thank you. Councillor Cohen, thank you. Councillor Wise? No, thank you. Any other? I might, I mean, this may be, you know, hopefully covers issues like we're going through at the moment, Mr Dodds.
Through Mr Mayor, my experience with business continuity plans and all emergency services plans is that they're a necessary evil, as one of the councillors said, but they very rarely paint the picture at the time when the emergency happens. There's always something thrown in that you have to make a decision at the time, but they're a good point to start from.
Thank you. Any further discussion? No. Put it to vote. Those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Financial statements and investments on page 202. Recommendation is that the officers' report on financial statements and investments as at 31 July be received and the information noted by Council. Firstly, that the report detailing the Council's position of $47,403,411.92 as at 31 July 2021 is received, and secondly, that the report detailing Council's investment balance of $46,448,772.88 as at 31 July 2021 also be received. Someone want to move that for us? Thanks, Councillor Wise. Seconded, Councillor Quino. Discussion, Councillor Wise.
Oh, yeah, we never normally discuss this, but taking a bit of interest in it of late, and what I feel is the world's going into an unusual place, and I've asked people that really are in the know, and no one can make a decision on what's going to happen financially in the world. Sorry, thanks very much. In the next few years, with what's happened with COVID and the way business is going to fall and what's going to go on, but I reckon that this council should make a determined effort now to get out of all the... I see here that we've got 18.6% of our money, which is 8.6 million in WAW Credit Union, which is unrated. We've got 4.2 million in AMP, but we've already spoken about that, and I think as they mature, those borrowings or lending to those people might be extinguished, and we're going to go somewhere else. And also 3 million to the Bank of Australia, who are only a BBB rating. I feel that we should look for a BBB plus rating for all our investments in council, because this is a tough time in the world we don't exactly know where we're going. I would like to go higher, but it's probably, you're chasing a minimal amount of interest increases from 0.7 to 0.3 or something. So I really believe that this council should be looking at the investments that we've got sitting out there, and that under triple B plus should be negated, and they should be put into a better place.
Mr. Dodds?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I tend to, well, actually, I do agree with Councillor Wise, and ask council whether or not they would deem it appropriate to refer to the Risk and Audit Committee, since the chair of the Audit Committee has set up a bank himself. I forget the name. It's called Robo now, but it was something else when he set it up, and has had an extraordinary long career in the banking industry, and would be able to provide advice that I can't provide council.
I'd appreciate it. Yeah, I think we should be looking at it.
Yeah, I know. I'm just thinking. Councillor Cohen, you had your hand up. Yeah. Councillor Waridge?
And I certainly support that view too, but there's other things besides money that you can invest in. I don't know whether water is something that we probably have to have a discussion about. Given the importance and significance of water to the region, perhaps not all, but maybe part of what we have we could invest in water. That's just one thing that comes to mind. I don't think we should be, given the low interest rates we're attracting on our investments, I think we should maybe look a little outside the square, but not too far outside the square, because it's not our money.
Thank you. Mr. Dodds? I think we've got restrictions on that, have we not?
Yeah, I was just about to say, through you, Mr. Mayor, there's some fairly strict restrictions on our investments. Quite a few years ago, councils got burnt by a company called Grange Securities that a lot of councils invested a lot of money in and cost them heaps. And they've tightened up what you can invest in. But if it be the will of council, I can include a rather broad brush report and ensure that it's that the chair of the Risk and Audit Committee is fully briefed, so that he's prepared for the meeting and can come forearmed and forewarned.
So just before, yeah, okay, thank you. Councillor Wise, are you proposing that we add to the recommendation, add to the motion a recommendation that the investment portfolio be referred to the Audit Committee for review?
Totally. I really feel that it's a very good time. We're placed pretty well. Everything's rolling along pretty nice and pretty right now, but there's a lot of businesses going to be in trouble. A lot of Middle Australia is going to be in trouble with lease properties, commercial properties are out there that people can't pay their rent, and then the next guy is the Middle Australia guy, and he's affected, and we see it tumbling. Okay. And so I really just trying to look after council finances. That's all I'm here to see if you could do something to make sure it's a little bit more firm, and we're sitting on good solid concrete.
Okay, so if I could have a mover for the additional recommendation that says that the investment portfolio of the council be referred to the Audit Committee for review with a view to a more secure footing.
Yep.
Is that a motion that the mover and seconder would accept?
Yep.
Yes? Oh, I'm sorry. Who was that with a hand up? Councillor Mathers? Sorry, I'm just in the process of getting a mover and a seconder for that amendment, Councillor Mathers.
I was just happy to either move or second if that's all right.
Okay, fine, thank you. So there's a mover and a seconder. Any debate on that amendment? No? So I'm asking for a debate, asking for a vote on the amendment itself, not on the whole of the other elements. So who approves of the amendment to refer it to the Audit Committee? That's unanimous, I believe. Okay, so now we're back to dealing with items 1 and 2 there, the current positions of the various balances, the two balances. So someone like to move that? Thank you, Councillor Cohen. Seconded, Councillor Wise. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Where did I get onto that? Financial stuff. So back to the supplementary report on page
70.
70. Page 70 of the supplementary report. It's item 9.2.4 and it relates to the 2020-2021 Capital Works carryover report. This is again a rather procedural motion, I think, is it not, Mr Dodds?
Yes, Mr Mayor.
The recommendation is that the Council approves the carryover works and services with a remaining budget of $941,000 to be carried over from the 2020-2021 financial year to the 2021-2022 financial year. And this reflects work that hasn't been completed in this current year to carry the funds over until next year when they can be completed. Am I right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yep.
It's a requirement for carryovers to be a resolution of council. Been in this game for a long time and I've never seen all the works finished at 11:59 on the 30th of June at the end of the financial year my whole time, and I don't think if I led to 1,000 I ever will.
No, and given the size of our capital spending this year, 941 is not a big number.
No.
All right, someone like to move that? Thanks, Councillor Crowe. Seconded by Councillor Gorey. Discussion, Councillor Crowe?
Oh, not really, except to say it's basically just a clerical process doing this. So to be expected having some unexpected funds at the end of the financial year.
Yep, thank you. Councillor Campbell?
Are we able to get the drawing a little bit larger on these reports? That's the key. Just make it finalised as required.
Yeah, it's very hard to see.
Yeah.
So
These are the items that have been carried over. Yeah. Yeah, point taken. Lindy, can you take note of that? The tables that we put in here need to be readable. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Any other issues on this item? No? Okay, I'll put it to vote. Those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Back to the main agenda, 9.3.1 on page 208. This is a recommendation that the officers' report on the major projects update as at the 12th of July 2021 be received and noted by Council. So this is a continuation of the report that our previous Director of Engineering was instrumental in producing. Anyone like to move that, please? Thanks, Councillor Quino. Seconded, Councillor Cohen. Discussion, Councillor Quino?
Yeah, I was just very happy to see that things are actually still continuing quite well considering the unstable times that we're going through at the moment.
Yeah, indeed.
Done really well.
Thank you. Councillor Cohen?
just halfway down the page, the Moama foreshore development, it's got in status delayed risk.
No. Anissimo, have you got a comment on that?
Councillor Campbell, is that relating to the beach, Moana Beach?
Yes.
Amenities block?
Yeah, I know.
I think that comment relates to the risk that we perceived and which we are managing, relating to the supply of steel for the fabrication of the amenities block. But we've got the assurance from the supplier who is demounted, who is in Delhi, that we are on track to get the amenities block unit delivered at the end of September, which will tie in with the completion of the services which are currently under installation.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Happy with that, Councillor Carr?
Thank you.
Councillor Gorey's got his hand up, Mr.
Councillor Gorey.
Yes, first I'd like to congratulate Mr. Mo on him into his role as acting Director of Operations. And just like variations, I know it's turning into a major project, and I see you've had some success, the boardwalk at Barham and the river bank erosion. I noticed you got
Oh, there it is.
a big couple loads of rock dropped in there last week.
Cody.
Yeah. So,
Thank you, Councillor Boyd, for the compliments.
okay. Any further discussion on this item? Councillor Campbell.
Can I just ask Mr. Mo, do you see the rising river as being a bit of an issue coming up to some of these projects?
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. We are confident that the rising river, while it is a risk that we manage, it is, we are confident that we will deliver our program and manage, control the risk. For example, the Moama Beach, it is anticipated that the project is supposed to run and the amenities block functional at whatever level of the river. The same with the work we are undertaking at Picnic Point. We have delivered the more challenging work, which is the actual installation of the boat ramp with protection using sheet piling, and we managed to overcome higher river level for more challenging work. We have since undertaken some work in Barham, and we seem to be containing the challenge of the rising level of the river. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. So, major projects. Mathoura Residential Development Feasibility, page 213. Again, the recommendation is that the officer's report on the Mathoura Residential Development Feasibility update be received and the information noted by council. And this issue arose out of a motion from Councillor Wayridge. So, can someone move that recommendation? Councillor Wayridge, thank you. Seconded, Councillor Quino. Discussion, Councillor Wayridge.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I see this as a bit of a refinement of the original proposal, I think. And I'm no town planner, but I think going from 29 lots down to 21 lots will probably make it a little bit cheaper to achieve the development. A lot of people say to me, you know, geographically Mathoura's placed in a pretty good spot. It's halfway between Deniliquin and Echuca Moama, and the cost of real estate, and I'm not into real estate, but I'm led to believe a block of land in Moama is around $300,000. Would that be acceptable to everybody?
I haven't bought one for a long time.
Very much so.
Well,
very much.
Yeah, you know, given that even real estate in Deniliquin is starting to, is on, well, it always has been on the up, but it's starting to take off a bit quicker. I think it's a perfect opportunity and a good opportunity to enhance the town and give people other options where it might be just a little bit too expensive to buy in Echuca Moama in particular, and I'd certainly be in favour of it. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah. Councillor Wise.
Yeah, I looked at this project and started out and I thought, oh, we need to get 60k a block, and then I started doing the numbers, and then I got further in and it got thicker and thicker, and there's not much money in this project, but what there is in it is good for your town, Tom, and I think that's probably why I would vote for it. I don't think there's any money in it much for council, 600 grand or something, but I see it as advancing Mathoura enormously. So once you see some new development in a town, it lifts the potential of the town. So I was quite disappointed at the actual cost, like the last 9 sites are 76,000 each. So what the question I had to ask you, because I'm not really versed with Mathara, is what are the actual, would that land attain some of those good blocks, the bigger ones obviously attain 113,000, which is the highest number, and, 72 for the lower ones. Is that possible? Is that where we're at here?
I think that is achievable. I think the ones at 113 might be a little bit slower for the uptake, but a block of land now in Mathara, just a normal sized block of land, a building block is selling anywhere from 60 to 80,000. So I think we're, and these will be brand new lots, we'll have brand new roads, and I think it's more than achievable, and I think it will be an excellent outcome for not only Mathara but for the whole of the Murray River Council.
Okay, well, I think it's worth a punt. It's a punt. This is just a feeling that we might not make a massive amount of money, but for what it would do for the community, it would be worth it. Yep.
Okay. So, sorry. Oh, Councillor Crowe.
And Councillor Boyce.
I'd like to say a few things about the proposal. Am I actually allowed to discuss any of the financials that are actually in that contract?
Look, if we go into that, we would have to move it into confidential because the attachment is in confidential. So if you want to talk through those, yes, by all means, we can move into confidential.
Thank you.
So, would you like to move that we do so?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. A seconder? Thank you, Councillor Cohen. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Now, so please note the absence of Councillor Queener. Would someone like to move to bring forward the resolution from confidential? Thanks, Councillor Cohen. Second to Councillor Wise. Those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. The recommendation or the motion that was approved was that, said he, looking for it. Was it in the... now I've lost it.
Page 270.
Page
270. Oh.
250.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
Sorry,
215. The Council received the report on Section 355 committee minutes. No, that's not it.
No, preceding ones, 213.
213, yeah. That's right. The recommendation that was moved and approved is that the officer's report on the Mathara residential development feasibility update be received and the information noted by Council. Thanks for that.
Now,
Section 355. So we'll move on now to page 215. The recommendation is that the Council receive the report on the Section 355 committee minutes and note the items highlighted under conclusion. They relate to the Moolameen Hall, the Moolameen Men's Shed and the Murray Downs Riverside Park Management Committee and the Friends of Old Moama. So would someone like to move the recommendation? Thanks, Councillor Cohen. Seconded, Councillor Wayrich. Discussion, Councillor Cohen.
no, happy to move it. Obviously, there's not a lot of minutes in here because, once again, we're about 6 times over we've been shut down as committees and can't meet. So I'm guessing everyone's looking forward to when we can all meet and hold our 355 committee meetings again.
Thank you. Councillor Wayrich.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've been here a long time, and in that time, Section 355 committees were certainly didn't have the status that they have now. And I'm saying this in relation to what Mr Dodd said this morning, that where he came from, they didn't have Section 355 committees, and they just got by having small committees, and council would take, I'm assuming councillors would take advice from those committees. Is that
100%?
Now,
and actually, most committees, the council actually sat on the committees.
Yeah, and I have no issue with that, and I actually think that's probably, in some respects, that's a better way of doing it. What I'm getting at is this council, in its earlier days, was on a mission to clean up, well, not clean up, that's the wrong words, but to re-establish or establish Section 355 committees in organisations that previously didn't have any. And I refer to retirement villages both in Moama and Mathaura, and they caused a fair bit of angst in those committees. And I might remind councillors and other people that these people in these committees are volunteers. They are not paid. They give of their time. I felt a little, well, I wasn't upset, but I couldn't understand the justification for trying to change what seemed to be working pretty good into something that made it more formal. Now, the legal ramifications of making it more formal are quite obvious. But having said that, we are a small, well, we're not a small council, we're a large council in a big area with not many people in it. I'm just a little bemused that we've gone full swing from, you know, an era where Section 355 committees were, as Mr Dodd says, didn't have them and everything seemed to work out pretty good. To me, at the end of the day, the end game is we've upset a whole lot of people and a whole lot of volunteers, I might add, and here we are trying to impose, well, not impose, that's too strong a word, but Section 355 committees, we have to have them, I know, but perhaps we place too much emphasis on trying to bring people into line with things that, you know, let's not forget they are volunteers. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Any other comment? No, I'll put this to the vote. Those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. The next item is on 217, Murray River Council Community Grants Program, the appointment of the assessment panel for round 1 in 21-22. The recommendation is that the council endorse the CEO or his nominee as a member of the Murray River Council Community Grants Program Assessment Panel, and secondly, that council appoint 3 councillors to the Murray River Council Community Grants Program Assessment Panel to assess applications under round 1 in 2021-2022. So I think I can confidently take these two together. We're not asking for the names yet. We should do that after the recommendation has been voted on. So, someone like to move those two recommendations? Thanks, Councillor Crowe. Seconded, Councillor Cohen. Discussion, Councillor Crowe.
Well, there's probably no real discussion to be had about it. It's just a regular occurrence that we have twice a year where we allocate our community grants of up to $3,000 per group or application.
Yeah. Thank you. Any further? Councillor Wayrich.
Once again, Mr Mayor, I've been here a long time. You're probably sick of me saying that. Look, as you can see, I've been on it off and on for many years, but I backed out of the last lot because it all got too hard. Do they call it Smarty grants or something? Is that what this is? Well, in years gone by, we just got it. We saw the people that were involved in this had read the applications, and we sat down and we discussed it. And we always seemed to come up with pretty good decisions. And you're never going to please everybody because there's just not enough money. We all know that. I think it's $30,000. Is that right? I know Deniliquin's got $5,000 and we've only got 3. Why that is another story, I think. But, you know, I'm prepared, and I think it's fair and appropriate that one councillor from each ward be on this. And I think that we need to make it simple because it just consumes too much time. I'm more than happy to sit down with other people and discuss it in a round table situation, but not sit down hours and hours trolling through bits of paperwork and scales and percentages and all that sort of stuff. That's not, I don't believe that's how it should be done. We are a country council dealing with country organisations. I'd like to see it simplified, and if we can simplify it, I will put my hand up, but if it stays the way it is, I'm a non-starter.
Thank you. Mr Harvey, you had a comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Wayrich for raising the issue. I'd like to sit down with the 3 councillors, whoever they may be, and go through the system with them. I found in the past that it takes me roughly 2 minutes to review each application using this system. So there is, once you know how to do it and once you can, you've been instructed, I have to say to Councillor Wayrich, he'll be a dab hand at it. No worries at all.
That's confidence.
Thank you. Any further comment? Councillor Wise.
Yes, I sort of agree with Councillor Wayrick. I've been on that committee and I really enjoyed it. Actually, I quite like doing it. I think that there's too much paperwork. There's like 4 sheets of paper to one application, where if you had just the money they're seeking, what their organisation is, what they do, what their aims are, and a very basic, simple format, 1 page, you can read it. I totally agree with you. I said that this thing looked very complicated, but I agree with John though. If you look a bit smart, you can just read the main few items out of each thing that you need. I think it works, you know, so yeah.
Make a comment.
Sorry, no, I'm just asking for other comments first. Any other comments before Councillor Wayridge again? No, certainly Councillor Wayridge.
There are other factors besides what's written on paper. Things like, you know, we might say the Burraboy Tennis Club, and I don't even know whether there is such a thing. You know, that sometimes it's not black and white. Sometimes there are grey areas, like one town might have 5 applications in and another town might have 1. And the one, they might have had money 2 years ago and they're not entitled to it for another 3 years or something like that. You have to, sometimes, it's a case-by-case thing. You can't, you know, work it out on a calculator. It's not that simple. And that part of it, I think, is what's missing. And once again, I reiterate, we're a country council dealing with lots and lots of issues. And the simpler we can make it, look, I trust everybody in the room. I'm more than happy to sit down and have a discussion, well, nearly everybody, have a discussion with anyone about what's the best outcome.
Thank you. Any other contributors to this debate? Bear in mind we're confining ourselves to the recommendation that the CEO be appointed and that 3 councillors be appointed. So if that's the recommendation, or that's the motion, if there's no further debate, I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Now, we do need to appoint 3 councillors to the program for the first round of 2021-2022. So don't rush me. But Councillor Crow's put her hand up. Is that you volunteering, Councillor Crow? Thank you.
Yes, yes, I am.
Councillor Wise, likewise.
Yep.
Have we got another one? Thanks, Councillor Aquino. That's fantastic. So
we usually have 1 from every ward.
No, we didn't last time.
We did. It's just I backed out.
Yeah, I replaced Judy, so we ended up with 2.
I think it's appropriate to have 1 from every ward.
What does the council feel about that?
Yeah.
I mean, I think you know, the Councillor Wise and Councillor Aquino are so close to the Moama community that they can represent both the Greater Murray and the Moama community. I mean, it's not as if they're arguing about allocations of money across ward boundaries.
I don't mind letting Councillor Cohen do this if I
No,
can
I've
put her
done
nose
it
out.
a million times. No, I was about to say exactly what the Mayor has said, that I think the 2 of you equally, even though it's greater.
I think it's more important that we've got a representative from Walcool than the split between these 2 committees. Okay, so we've got those recommendations. Yes. So that being the case, do I need to put that to the vote? I guess I do. So those in favour of those 3 nominees, that's carried. Thank you. So, Murray River Energy Cost Report.
Can I just ask one question? I'm sorry. On 18, are we prepared due to COVID that some of these projects may take a bit longer? So it's got by the 15th of December, projects need to be completed and funding equivalent submitted. But perhaps due to COVID, some of these projects may take a little bit longer.
Mr. Harvey.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Cohen. Look, I think if Council is okay with that, I think that we have to give a little bit of leniency here, especially due to COVID. However, we take on board the comments and put forward by Councillor Campbell, I believe last month, where some organisations were just taking far too long to acquit their projects. And in fact, we had an organisation request a further extension of time just last week, and we have declined that because they have been taking a long time and not because of COVID. So, look, I take that on board, but I still think we have to be a little bit flexible if council's okay with that.
Thank you. 9.5.3 Murray River Energy Cost Report, page 220. The recommendation is that council receive the report. Someone want to move that? Councillor Weyrich, seconded. Councillor Mathers, thank you. Councillor Weyrich.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is not exactly how I envisaged it would be, but nevertheless, look, I could talk for hours on this, and as everybody knows that I've been steadfastly against this from the get-go, from day one. I've not supported it. I've always spoken against it, and I think, given, look, I've got a list. I've got 9 questions. I could be here. We could be here the rest of the day answering these questions, such as why do we have a barrister? Why don't we have a normal lawyer? Why are we engaging a barrister when we could get a normal lawyer to do this? This should be simple, straightforward. We hold first mortgage over the land. Why we're doing that? That's just one of the questions. The valuation process is flawed beyond belief, and I think from protocol and procedures aspect, this council is. Well, I don't think we're out of the woods yet. I think that's yet to come, what's going to come as far as that goes. And I refer directly to OLG's investigation, which I think is ongoing and being stalled a little because of COVID-19. Look, I don't want to be critical of everybody and anybody, and like I said, I could talk for hours on this, but what about if I just suck it up and I come up with a plan B, and my plan B is that the block of land in Geelong gets sold, that's a given. The block of land out here on the Line Road, we sell that. And if we're not prepared, I'm not even going to entertain heavy industry out there or heavy whatever it is it says. That's just not even on my radar for lots and lots of reasons. And the first one is the road and who's going to pay for the road and which developer would pay for the road, who bought the property would pay. There are lots and lots of aspects to this, but I don't want to get bogged down and everybody gets sick of me talking. I reckon we sell the block of land out here on the Line Road, and if we're not prepared to sell it, we have a discussion maybe about a cemetery or something along those lines. There's a couple of options that we have. But I think there's a new council coming in December. I think we should do everything and anything we can to separate ourselves from this mess. And that's what it is. It's a mess from start to finish. Procedural and protocols haven't been adhered to. There are lots and lots of them. The police are involved, OLG, ICAC, every man his aunt, he's got a run in this. Let's just give it up, put a hand up and say, we got it wrong, and let's just move on, sell what we can, cut our losses and not burden the new council with all this stuff. And we just have to say to the community, well, I didn't, but the council mucked up. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Any other comment? Thanks, Councillor Campbell.
Yes, I've got several issues which should come as no surprise, so you can all sigh now. I think there's some flaws in this report, and I have some. I'm just a bit. The cost of this ethanol plant was like $100 million or something, a state significant project, and we don't seem to have spent much time, staff time on it, and. I want to go to the independent valuation that was given on the 18th of December 2020, considering we bought the land in August 2018, with a lease attached to it that's noted on the title, which is why people found out about what the lease was. It was such a poor amount, and I think it's out there in the marketplace on a really, really low, is it 15 or something? I don't know. It's a low rate. I haven't seen the lease myself, or if I've seen it, I haven't really taken much notice because it's out of our hands as a council. With that lease attached to title, what do you think the value's worth? Because the leasee has more control over the property than the owner, which is council. So I see the special value range in the independent valuation. I thought valuations were purely on the zoning, and I've never known any bank to cop that I can say, well, I'm going to have whatever I'm going to have on my land when I haven't got the correct zoning to it. They don't accept it. So the whole independent valuation, I believe, flawed. And let's hope we haven't repeated history and we haven't got community land out there and also that we haven't disposed of any interest in that land, given that we've put a lease on it. So I don't know, but I think council, I agree to a certain extent with Councillor Wayridge, own it, fix it, and it's not going to be good. End of story. But there's massive procedural issues that we really haven't come to terms with. I don't see any of the dinners. I think we had dinners at the mill. I don't know whether there was other different things that we've engaged with the cost to council. So I just think this report's flawed, but I'm more concerned and didn't even think about it before, but maybe we've also got community land out there which doesn't make it worth a lot of money.
Community land?
Well, has council put it into operational land after we purchased it? Once it become a purchase of council, don't we have to do something about that? Given that
remains rural land, is it not, Mr. Croft?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, it's still zoned rural. The question is really around whether council voted to put it into operational land within the 3-month period. I think if that's what your question is, Ms. Campbell. So we'll have to take that question on notice and look into that.
Yeah, totally accept before your time, Rod. But I'm just saying there might be a lot more regulatory issues associated with this that we haven't even thought of.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Mr. Councillor Gorey?
Yeah, my only real comment is we do have a block of land which we don't have a use for, so at some stage council must come back with a report on options. I know there's been a few options discussed today. I'm not ready yet to make any decision of what that land should be used for, but we certainly need to sell it. And the other thing maybe was a fair comment of Councillor Wayridge, maybe we should leave it to the next council to make a decision. But anyway, look, as the outcome of this ethanol plant, we put that one to bed and that little block of land must be sold. But we can argue about this the next 12 months, but really our biggest decision now is to get that land sold or make the best use of it.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Wayridge.
Two things, Mr. Mayor. I note that Mr. Dodds has indicated that in relation to the lease we will receive a further report, and I look forward to that because I think it's $15 an acre and the going rate's 50 to 65. I have in my possession a valuation from Rural Co Property, and they valued the land at that time at somewhere between $480,000 to $540,000. I'll give this document to Mr. Dodds just so he can file it for information. But they're the kind of numbers that we're looking at. And look, I thought 15 hours for committed to the project, excluding the former CEO, is, really, I think that's a bit, that's more than a bit light on. I think it would be a lot more than that. But I thought we had some sort of a computer system that could tell you when you're on and what you're on and what hours you spent on it. We don't have that?
It's Big Brother. No, we don't.
All right. Righto.
Councillor Cohen.
I have to be, I feel like I've spent more than 15 hours on it.
Oh.
So I do kind of dispute, and considering how much we have dealt with this issue and how many community discussions we've had about it and brought back to council, I sort of feel that in the report 15 hours has to be pretty light on.
Absolutely.
And I have to admit, like Councillor Wayridge, I was expecting a bit more of a spreadsheet report of monetary values rather than, just figures spread through it.
All right. Councillor Wise.
The land out there, I think Mr. Miller's totally out with his value, by the way. Sorry, Tom, but I I was only talking to him yesterday, and he's selling a property further out. I know, but it's half bush, half timber, mostly rabbits, which I really like. But it's like $1,500 an acre for that country. Now, I reckon that there's a property just not further up the road for sale at $3,000 an acre, which is obviously too much because it's not sold yet. But if you put it on the market, if you want to put it on the market, like, you know, 2,500 might make that. It just might make it at a pinch or put it up for tender. But I definitely wouldn't be selling that land for. If you want to sell it for 480, 500,000,
I'm going to
buy it. I'm the buyer. So there you go.
I'm not saying we sell it for that.
Yeah, well.
At that time, that's what.
Yeah, okay.
It's
Yeah.
unapproved land,
Right.
and that's what he says.
Yeah. So.
Councillor, Mr. Harvey, you've had your hand up for some time.
Councillor Wayrich.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to point out to councillors on page 222, in the second paragraph, there's an amount of $29,920. That should actually read $26,224.70. The $29,920 was the tender price for that investigation, but to date, council has only been billed for $26,224.70.
Thank you. Councillor Campbell, you had your hand up?
Sorry, one last one. No one's acknowledging that this property that we're talking about at Line Road has a 5-year lease with an option to extend for a further 5 years, noted on the title. So any property with a lease attached to it changes the value considerably because, like I said before, they have more rights than the owners of the land.
Thank you. Go on.
I remember when we were doing this deal with the ethanol people that they had the right. They started off saying they wanted about 50 acres down on the front. That's correct, Mr. Mayor. So what they did was after that, they had the right to go back and change they might want another 100 to put hothouses on or something. They were allowed to, within the law of written part of the lease, that's all I remember from the initial dealings. So maybe I think that the way to do it would be to, well, if it's a new owner, it might change the whole thing. Legal again, back to legal.
Again, we don't know the answer. Councillor Wayrich.
Just finally,
last time.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I look, finally, I think we just should cancel the lease. We have that option. That's certainly an option for this council. I think we're bleeding money at a rapid rate in costs and you know, things are escalating, and this is not a foregone conclusion that these people are going to go easily or because if they were, they would just put the land up for sale, sell it and pay us the money. So there's going to be some angst there. We are bleeding money. We're tearing up $100 notes every day. We need to get out of this.
In what respect?
Oh, money. Just
how are we bleeding money?
Well, the interest. And I know what you're going to say. Well, we'll get that back when we sell it. That's if we sell it for what we think we can get for it.
Okay. Well, yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Through Mr. Mayor, Peter Beaumont, our manager of all things land and leases and licences and deeds, has been asked that question after the last council meeting. Well, actually, might have been the council meeting before, and he's working on the leasing document to answer that question for council about terminating the lease.
Right, so we'll get a further report?
Yes.
Let's do it. Well, will the report give us the option to cancel the lease?
The report will give council all the information we can find out about it, everything.
Okay.
Councillor Campbell's just left the room.
John Harvey's got his hand up there.
Oh, John. So, Mr. Harvey, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of things. As the CEO has just pointed out, that Council's manager of leases, contracts and procurement has referred the matter to our legal people to get an answer and to see what Council's options are in relation to the lease. The other thing, I think Councillor Wayrich raised posed a question early on about why council has appointed a barrister. Because the matter's being heard in the Victorian Supreme Court, you have to be represented by a barrister.
Can I just respond to that, Mr Mayor? Why is it going to the Supreme Court? I would have thought that our lawyer would talk to their lawyer and say, well, guys, you know, you've breached the rules. That the law is that if you don't pay, they have the mortgage.
I don't know the background of that, but Mr Harvey?
Sorry, thank you, Mr Mayor, through you to Councillor Wayridge. The way that these matters are settled, they're settled within the Supreme Court of Victoria.
Okay.
Yeah.
But a barrister...
It's a procedural thing.
Yeah, a barrister can't be cheap. Like, that's got to be another cost. And I've never engaged a barrister, but I would imagine they wouldn't be cheap. So, you know, getting back to what I said about tearing up $100 notes, we're doing that at a rapid rate, and it's not our money.
Well, even at the low rate of the lease, and acknowledge that it is low.
0.3.
Eh?
At the low rate of 0.3, there's not much money in worrying about the bloody rate of interest.
What's the 0.3?
0.3%.
What?
That you're going from your money.
Yeah, well, you know, but the lease we're getting, is it 15,000 a year for that? Well, that's way better than you get at a bank.
Yeah, but the argument against that is that, and I got this from a real estate agent in Dunillican, and I think I raised it at another meeting, is that return on investment. If you want to purchase some land and someone has a lease, a legal lease, which they have, at $15 an acre, you're going to say, well, the lease is a reflection upon what the property is worth. That's a fair argument. I think no one would argue that. At $15 an acre, it's valued at a quarter of what it should be. And someone to purchase it with a lease that is existing, you know, you wouldn't even offer $500,000 because all you're going to get is 15 grand a year. It'd take you forever to get your money back.
I think we need to clarify what the status of that lease is and how.
And that's what it.
And I think you know, people are far smarter than just looking at saying the $15,000 a year for the lease. It can't be worth more than $500K. I mean, people know what the value of this land is out there.
But if it's tied up for 10 years or 8 years or 7 years,
how can it be tied up for 8 years? We're getting some information about the lease. Now, it may be that lease can be cancelled on the spot or with a fee, all of which would, you know, remove that issue.
Mr Mayor, just let me reiterate what I said at the start. There's lots that could be said about this, but I think the best way out, in my 65 years on the planet, is we just cut our losses, get out of it.
I don't think anyone's arguing with you, Tom, that the sooner we extricate the council from this process, the better. Yep. Okay, if that's the extent of the debate, and bear in mind that the resolution was to simply receive the report, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Well, grants update 2021, page 223. The recommendation here is the council receive and note the August 2021 funding report. And someone like to move that for me? Yes. Thanks, Councillor Cowan and Councillor Wise. Councillor Cowan?
Yeah, happy to move it.
Thank you. Questions or debate? Councillor Wayridge?
More a question, Mr Mayor. $4,328,281 for the Moama Wakeboard Cable Park. Now, we're going to bat for these people for that amount of money. Am I reading it right?
Mr Harvey, would you like to explain the nature of these applications?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Wayridge, for the question. These matters were put before Council in a report last month, and Council agreed to be the main applicant for the funding. This funding, as I said last month, this funding is only available through local government, and Council looked at that report last month and agreed to move forward with it.
Okay.
Again, there was no council money to be expended.
I understand that, but this piece of land is private property, as I understand it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So I'm not saying I'm against the project, certainly that's not the case at all, but I'm just intrigued that $4.4 million the government to spend on a private enterprise is, I could think of a few myself. Maybe I should do that, eh?
Well, so is some of the...
Councillor Campbell?
Yeah, the Australian Stars privately owned one, which is almost 7 million. Yeah, paddle's been on.
Councillor Campbell?
No, I was only going to reiterate what Councillor Cowan said.
Thank you. Any further debate on this? This is consequent to the motion that was passed at the last meeting. Any further debate? No. Put it to the vote. Those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Page 233. Lot 50, DP 1175457, Blythe Court, Moama. Expressions of interest. The recommendation is that the council accept the expression of interest submitted by Edgemate Concreting for the purchase of lot 50, DP 1175457, Blythe Court, Moama, and the Mayor and Chief Executive Officer be granted authority to sign all documents associated with the sale of the property and to apply the council seal where required, and finally to notify both applicants of council's decision. Someone like to move that? Thanks, Councillor Cowan. Second, Councillor Wise. Discussion, Councillor Cowan.
That sounds like a
No.
good price to me.
Yep.
Happy?
Yes.
John, I'll just ask you, Mr. Harvey, is this the price that was on the land? Just the normal retail price that you were charging?
That's great.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, thank you, Councillor Wise. If I could give you the background to this, normally council had numbers of blocks available in the business park for sale, and we would get an inquiry. Someone would come in and say they want to buy this block or that block, and then the report would go to council to get permission to sell it. We came down, we had no lots left for sale in that particular business park, and one lot was handed back in, the sale wasn't completed. And because we had 6 inquirers on our list at the time, rather than myself making an arbitrary decision as to who to sell the land to, it was decided after talking to council's contracts and leases manager to put out advertise for expressions of interest to purchase the land. And the criteria that we put on it was that council was seeking offers over 180,000, including GST, which is the list price that council had on that particular block of land. We also wanted to know what type of development and expected time frame for completion and the number of jobs to be created. And I think in the confidential attachments you can see what council received. A number of the applicants that were interested declined to put an expression of interest in on the basis that the size of the land itself was a bit too big for what they wanted.
And as Mr. Harvey's referred to, there are a couple of confidential attachments there, and if I'd advise you that we don't want to get into the pricing of this because we're an open council. If someone has a burning desire to do so, we can move into confidential, but I think the numbers that you see in the confidential section will bear out the fact that the deal is actually quite a good one. All right, if that closes the debate, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Move on to correspondence report on page 235. Recommendation is simple. The correspondence report be received and the information noted by council. Someone like to move that? Thanks, Councillor Warrich. Oh, was that? Oh, I beg your pardon. Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Aquino. Thank you. Any discussion, Councillor Warrich? Thank you. Any further? Seems to be dominated by COVID correspondence, which is coming in a torrent.
As are the COVID meetings each day with the state government, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, yes. So, there's no further discussion. I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour?
I was going to make a comment, Mr.
Okay.
Just a comment on page 308. Tell your MP the problem hasn't been solved. Despite stating that we're all in this together, the government is dividing communities by providing support to some and leaving out others who have the least at just $44 a day. I just thought, I'm a bit tired of the Premier of New South Wales saying we're all in this together. Well, we're not all in, not all of us are in this together, because she's certainly not in this together, and I'll be very good and shut up.
Thank you.
You're better than
It's not 15,000 euros, 7,000 euros. I've just been informed.
Have you? I didn't realise that.
I
thought it was high. I thought it was, okay, my mistake. I apologise. So, any further discussion on the correspondence? No, put it to the vote. Those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Sundry delegates report. That's on page 314. Recommendation is that the report of the Mayor and the Councillors for the period 27 July to 23 August be received and the information noted by the Council and reasonable out-of-pocket expenses be met by Council. Someone like to move that? Thanks, Councillor Quino. Seconded, Councillor Wayrich. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr Mayor. Once again, I've just, I haven't deliberately, like most people, haven't been attending many meetings because of COVID, but having said that, I certainly have attended some meetings, and I'll, if it's all right,
with an email to.
I will do that.
Yep,
I will. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Can I request a final amendment?
Yep.
If you read Councillor Maber's reported on her attendance. Sorry.
You trying to tell us something, Alan?
Come clean.
Councillor Cowan?
And as stated earlier in the minutes at the start of the meeting, I didn't make it into the team's
extraordinary meeting. Okay, scrub the extraordinary meeting for Councillor Cowan. Any further? And put it to the vote. Those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Now we have another one in the supplementaries. Item 10.1. It's the e-planning portal. It's on page 316, which makes me wonder where the hell it's got to. It's not on page 316. It's in the information package for the supplementary meeting, and it's at the very back. The last item. It's on page 84 of the supplementary package, it's a motion standing in the name of Councillor Wayrich. The motion being that CEO, Planning Director, write to the Minister for Planning, Rob Stokes, and Minister for Digital, Minister for Customer Service, Victor Dominello, to seek an immediate independent review in relation to the New South Wales Government's e-planning portal system against the objectives, improved functionality and improved timeliness of the Government's planning reform agenda and objectives of the planning portal itself in a regional New South Wales context. Point B seems to have disappeared somewhere, but anyway, we'll go with point A. So someone like to move that? Councillor Wayrich, that's your motion. Seconder for that, Councillor Cowan. Councillor Wayrich.
Mr Mayor, everybody knows that the Planning Department has been under duress for many, many years, and that situation has been exacerbated by 8% growth rate in Murray River Council. And like everyone, I'm aware that they have struggled for many, many years, and when you read some of the propaganda, and that's what it is, that assessment times across New South Wales will be slashed by up to 30 days, you'd have to be a little bit pessimistic that could be anything like accurate. Now, like most councillors, I have discussions with our planning director, and he tells me that what is in place is not working, and it's placing extra duress on our staff, and our staff do a bang-up job, there's no question of that. The last thing they need is to have their one hand tied behind their back, and that's probably how I view it. In theory it might work out all right, but in practicality it's just not working. And after several discussions with Mr Dodds and Mr Croft and some other people in the organisation, I think that we should be writing to the Minister and informing him of our disappointment in the performance of the program that they've implemented. I think despite our best efforts of trying to work within the confines and the guidelines of what they put in place, it's not working. And put simply, that we would be happy to revert back to what we was, which was not perfect, and everybody acknowledges that, but at least it's a system we can work within and we know the boundaries, whereas this has just, things go wrong and you've got to wait on emails and it just takes too long. It's just exacerbating a bad situation. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Cowan.
I just think it's very, very sad that it promised so much and it has delivered so little, and it has created extra work, whereas it promised the exact opposite. And I'm sure Mr Croft's department has suffered greatly for it.
Councillor Crowe.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. I was just wondering whether Mr Croft might like to speak to this item as well.
I was getting to Mr Croft, but I thought I'd let others have a chance to speak beforehand.
Well, I just want to make sure that if I'm going to support this motion that
be assured,
contrary to what...
Be assured Mr Croft will have a chance to speak before the vote is taken.
Through you, Mr Mayor, thank you, Councillor Logan, for raising it, and thank you for the questions. Yes, it's probably a lot worse than what Councillor Lowrich has explained, to be honest, and that's deeply disappointing for us and our department. In particular, we're doing a lot of work behind the scenes to improve the system and the processes, not for only internal, but for also our customers as well. So it is very disappointing. Not to say that we haven't tried to work with the e-planning portal staff. We've raised it with the New South Wales Government, with the Planning Delivery Unit. We've raised it far and wide, even to the point where we've now got unanimous votes from Ramjo for GM and Mayor, and also our planning Ramjo. So it is not just only Murray River Council, it is right across the state. The biggest part of the system is it appears it has been developed for Sydney-centric councils, where they don't necessarily have building surveyors, where they actually use private certifiers at their disposal, and therefore the change from Murray River Council accepting multiple applications in the one format, where we assess and determine applications all in one package or one-stop shop, is not able to be done under this new system. And therefore, for something like a traditional dwelling, you might have a shed attached to it, it's about 5 separate applications. And so each application has to be downloaded and uploaded to the system. So we've raised this far and wide as we can at this stage in terms of seeking change, and we're just hoping that someone out there will listen.
So, do you have any advice or recommendation about how this should be progressed? I mean, it's all very well us writing letters to ministers and so on. Is there any additional pathway that we should be thinking about?
I think as a starting point, Mr Mayor, is that they just need to talk to the regional councils as to to understand how we currently process applications in the regions where we are very differently set up to Sydney-centric councils, and design a system that accommodates our needs as well as theirs. Starting that process is probably going to be half of it. The rest of it is really about tweaks in the system along the way. But I think a really good start would be to talk to us, understand what our needs are, which hasn't happened to date, even the development of the system, and understand that, us in rural council, we are the water authority, we are the private certifier. We're not like Sydney where they have water authorities in their own right, where they have their own application process and they have private certifiers. So basically, all New South Wales city-centric council do is a DA process. We do the whole lot, and that's common right across New South Wales. So, long story short, if they can have a chat to us, I'm happy to provide a lot of recommendations and we've got a whole list of these recommendations on how to fix the system, and I won't go through that because it's fairly detailed, but we just want to open up that conversation.
Councillor Campbell.
As this was legislated, moving forward, and obviously the time it's going to take to change, or hopefully change for regional councils, how do we support the people that are putting DAs in at the moment and obviously having major issues?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Campbell, for the question. That's one thing that we've probably really struggled with. So there's a couple of answers to that, and I know Councillor Campbell and I had a conversation, I think it was early in the week, Councillor, or late last week, around problems in submitting applications and the terminology on how you actually submit it. The system is not ours. The system can't be configured to our needs. It's by the New South Wales planning portal people themselves. What we are doing is preparing a series of fact sheets because some of the common problems at the moment is really about knowing what documents are required to be submitted at what stage and for what application. And at the moment, the system doesn't necessarily filter on the basis of what you're proposing to submit. So if you're submitting for a house, it'll still ask you questions around things that actually aren't relevant to a house and aren't relevant to the legislation that impacts on the house. So what we're trying to do is cut some of those prompts out via preparing some fact sheets, which we're well underway. We're almost there. We hope to have them out by the end of August on our website, which is more broken down into a theme base around what the applicant is applying for, so we're very clear on what's required.
Okay, Councillor.
I just, through you, Mr. Mayor, could I ask Rod, what percentage of people are actually getting through the mire of, what percentage would be actually getting through the portal and winning out the other end, would you say, without any real doing it on their own, like what you wanted?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thanks for the question, Councillor Wise. I would estimate around about the 25-30% at the moment, and that's with the system leading you through that process. So it is quite low. There is a number of system errors that are from our end that throw things up that are impediments, I guess, to the customer and understanding what they require. So things like, for instance, consistent terminology with naming protocols of documents and that type of thing. The system's just not capable of doing that.
Okay. Any further discussion on this one? No, I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. And I think that brings us to the end of the meeting. Before I close, yeah.
Perhaps Rod could write the wording of what we need to put to, Mr. Stokes. Is that possible?
Well, I think we've devolved the responsibility of writing a complaint to Rod and the CEO to do
council,
that.
basically.
But we don't have the technical expertise to explain the issue. No. All right. That's it, I think, is it not, Lindy? All done?
All done.
Okay, well, thank you for your attendance, everybody, and it took a little bit longer than I expected it might, but we got there. So I'll officially close the meeting at 4:44.